Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm not an avid tweeter, but I'm an author. With the likes of Gautam Ghosh here, you can't call me avid tweeter. He is an avid tweeter. I'm here not because I'm going to speak to you about Facebook, Twitter, or social media tools. I'm here, I stumbled into this whole social media jamboree actually by accident. I'm not even an expert. But why the hell am I here and why should you listen to me? Is I personally benefited from this. And I believe as HR managers, as even managers and college students or whatever, this is a terrific channel and medium for us to leverage both for personal success as well as for organizational success. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about. This is not about Facebook, Twitter, like I said. This is not about tools. This is clearly about employee engagement and how can you harness the power of social media to have better engaged employees. And a good start for us is a question for you. I'd really like you to participate because I can see all of you extremely comfortable. And that's not a good state for you to be comfortable when I'm nervous up here trying to present to you guys. So the first question for you is, what in your mind is employee engagement? How would you define engagement? Anybody just give it a shot. I'll come close by so that my mic can pick up your voice. Go ahead. Somebody feels like coming to office on Monday. That's very, very well said. Very succinctly said. Staying late? Okay. Go ahead.
Going beyond the job responsibilities and delivering high value.
Going beyond expectations. One more and then anybody else? Go ahead. Just yell it out. Excellent. Very well said. All of you captured it extremely well. How many of you are in HR? I should have asked you, how many of you are not in HR? So tell me, what do you do to drive this? I will answer that question for you. We are like event managers. We don't do engagement, we do entertainment. Our idea of engagement is to organize fun at work. Our idea of engagement is to do a Antakshari day. When there is, Dandiya happening, we'll organize weekly stuff. And the HR guy will write saying, great job, everybody's happy. How many people think that this will drive engagement? It doesn't. But unfortunately, that's what we know. That's what we believe drives engagement. And all of you actually said it very well. And I want to read this because I want to make sure we're very clear of our understanding of what engagement is. As a group, I'm very happy because the way these folks explained it, you're there. Here's what my understanding of engagement, it kind of summarizes all of that, what these folks said. A heightened emotional connection that influences an employee to exert greater discretionary effort for the benefit of the company. Listen, I am at the end of the day an entrepreneur and a business guy. In addition to being a HR leader, I also run a $50 million business. I'm not here to keep people happy for the sake of happy. As a HR leader, your job is to keep people happy so they stay longer, work without asking a pay raise. Are you doing that? That's a dangerous one to play to the emphasis, guys. Work willingly without complaining and do what's best for the company and stay longer like I did for 12 years and say I love this company despite the fact that they don't pay me well, right? That is very critical, right? You've got to be very clear that that's what you want to achieve. And once you're clear that's what you want to achieve, then you look back and say, how can I leverage social media? And for you to be able to leverage social media, you need to understand two things. One is, how do you go about driving engagement? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to draw up here what I call the brand equity pyramid. And I'll need your help while I put that up. And does anybody have a good handwriting? Come up, come up. Can you start drawing a big triangle? So she's going to draw the brand equity pyramid. How many of you know of Maslow? Abraham Maslow? Very good. Everybody knows Maslow, right? So we're going to link Maslow with this. And just play along with me. I will link all of these seemingly disparate ramblings of me into a cohesive story for you. My success will be at the end of it, you understand employee engagement, which is critical. You understand some of the behaviors that drive the philosophy behind social media. So when you have a lot of people after me that come to talk to you about tools, you're able to say, now I know how to pick what Elango said in the morning and say which tool to use or how to drive this. And by the way, a lot of what I say, you don't need a fancy tool. You can actually drive it the traditional way, which is by pen and paper. You don't need anything beyond an internet and an email, but definitely helps. Can you draw a huge triangle? You can try and replicate this. Yeah, this is the one for you. Would you mind trying replicating this? Excuse me. Try and replicate this. Now, while she's doing this, we'll make the best use of time. I want to tell you guys a story. I'm sorry, you know what? I'll tell you the story again while you focus on this. Don't get distracted. How many of you have watched the movie War Horse? It's a Steven Spielberg movie. It's a lovely movie. If you have a child, you must watch it with that. It's a story of a young boy who was attached to a horse. And during World War I, the horse gets taken away. It's a story about it, but this is not about the horse or the boy. You know, there is a scene in the movie where the town crier, do you guys know what a town crier is? You remember in the Hindi movies, you have the guy going with the drum saying suno, suno, whatever. He is the English version. He comes in a bike. You've got to remember, town crier, if you want, write it down there because these are very critical parallels that you'll have to draw. A town crier comes in a bike in the village square. Village square is another important one for you to write down. And he says, here folks, England's going to war. The king's declared England's going to war and all young people are requested to enlist. From now until the end of the war, the church bells will toll every hour. The church bell is another one that you've got to put out, right? So, and the last one is the king's message. The king's message is England's going to war, and every able person has to, would be happy if you can enlist and fight for the motherland. The town crier and the church bell tolls. Switch back. What has changed now? That's the story. The town crier, the message, the king, the village square. Can you give me modern day parallels to this? Go ahead, Gautam. You've heard this before. The village square is virtual. Everybody is a town crier.
Messages are still messages.
Messages is still messages. Anybody else wants to say anything else?
I didn't get the church bell.
Sorry?
I didn't get the church bell metaphor.
Okay, this is something that even my guru should not know, right? So we'll get to you on that. What else? Anybody else wants to give this a shot? Very interesting. And there are no right or wrong. Just give it a shot. Is more of a reminder. The notifications that you get, okay? Especially when HR sends you notifications saying performance appraisal not done. Training hours not finished. Okay, so, Gautam was close. Listen, the message hasn't changed. England going to war, even today the message remains the same. that England, the king wants you to enlist remains the same. What's changed, like he said, you no longer need a congregation in the village square to make that conversation happen. You could have that conversation anytime, anywhere, virtually. And that's the difference, right? If you start looking at it. There's another huge difference that you have. What is that huge difference? Earlier, the king, and he said that saying everybody is a messenger. Earlier, only the king could afford to send that message out. Today, you're the king. You want a message that you want to broadcast. You are able to broadcast, and you probably get a much better reach than the king did last time. You remember the king had to hope that he had an effective town crier who went out there and yelled and screamed, went to all the towns and got the message, but you have access in your smartphone to the whole world. This smartphone is your village square. You have access through this to anybody, and that's the whole thing about social media. But what hasn't changed is if the message is still not interesting, nobody's going to listen to you. And most of us forget that the crucial part is the message and the messenger and how you communicate it and not what the tool is. Now, reflect that back to being a HR person. How does it change? The message still remains the same. You want people to get to work, like that gentleman said, on Monday. You want them to do a lot more extra, but the difference is the CEO is no longer the only guy who has access to the message or the messenger. There are more messages coming from our employees about what we are not doing well and what we're doing right than from the CEO. And I'll tell you, I put out a policy. Business Standard will publish it much before even my email goes out. That is how linked this whole world is. I put out a policy, in 15 minutes I will know whether it's a good one, bad one, what my employees think of it. You guys will ask the question that the MD wants to hear. Everybody shakes hand and walks away. How many MDs are actually on Twitter posting their messages? Very few or none, and you don't have to, right? But that's what I want us to consider and think about by saying, what can we do to get there, and what are those different ideas that we have? Thank you very much for putting that. So for that, it is very important that we look at this brand equity pyramid, right? So she's conveniently left out a few things, and I didn't turn to look there. So this is price, this is value. This is awareness, preference, loyalty, and connection. These are the 4 states in which people are as a brand, right? Now, at the awareness stage, here's what an employee is saying. I am aware, and I'll use emphasis for example. I am aware of emphasis and what it provides me, but I may still join Cognizant or Infosys. I will still join Cognizant or Infosys as long as the price is right. If I'm given 750 rupees per month more, I will move from Infosys to Infosys or Cognizant. That is at the awareness level of the brand. If you take commodities, I still am aware of Annapurna Atta, but I will go to Pillsbury Atta if it's at 50 paisa lesser, right? So that's the brand awareness stage. The second one is preference. What is preference? Preference is I prefer Emphasis, but I will still switch. I may still switch if there is a bad trigger. I have a bad manager, or if I get, instead of 750 rupees, 1500 rupees. So the price flexibility is going down, but your tolerance levels are still low. That's at the brand, that's a preference. The third one is where you have loyalty. What is loyalty? I feel strongly for this organization, and I will do whatever it takes. Even when the company screws up, I'm a lot more tolerant. Your tolerance threshold goes up. And the last one is, I feel connected, part of a community, and this is my company, and I want to stay back and make sure this is successful. These two levels, actually only at this level do you get heightened emotional connections. You can give them a bad boss. You may not even give them a salary increase. You may not even promote her, and they will still remain committed at least for one cycle. You can't mess with anybody for more than one cycle, right? Because of the opportunities that we have. They're not our parents. My father never got a promotion all his life, and he still taught in the same school. Very happy. But that's not going to happen with us because the opportunities are there. But you get what is called a golden one-cycle advantage, which you don't have. Now the question is, how can you leverage social media to get there? There are 3 P's that you got to remember, and I'll move to, these are, when do you get to connectedness? When you're proud of your company, and you're proud of what they do, and you're proud that you have the job, right? So that's number 1, which is pride. The second one is you participate. You are not a minion, an employee number, but you participate. You don't, your participation is not measured by the 9 hours and 15 minutes you put in, but your participation is measured a lot more. And we'll get to that as HR employees. And the third one is you actively perpetuate the image of emphasis, or the company emphasis, CTS, or wherever you work for, or Synchron, whatever you work. So those 3 P's are important. How do you get to those 3 P's? Leveraging social media. And there's one more bit of theory that I'll give you, and then I'll connect this whole part together. The third part, and I stumbled on this a few years ago, a year ago, on the net. And a lot of what I say is what I've researched on the net. There is no original thinking, so don't give me credit. I'm just going to pull this up for you. So this is something, it is important that you understand the philosophy of us as human beings and how we react. And I actually liked the way the gentleman reacted when he said, I disagree with him that people are immature. It is important that we understand what drives people and what is their psychology, and then we start harnessing that, right? So here's there are many isms that go with this. One is altruism. What is altruism? Any takers for altruism? I believe Millen's giving out iPads for the most participating in, right, Millen? Please disappear. So he's giving out iPads, and Gautam will give you guys a free promotion on Twitter if you participate a lot. So what is altruism? Just give it a shot. Helping others? Very good. So it is, he's right, the unselfish devotion to the welfare of others. This is us. This is our employees. In many ways, there's altruism. Do you know where altruism is at its best? How many of you go to TripAdvisor? There you go. TripAdvisor is, in many ways, you don't get anything out of it except the bad reviews, but you still go out and put your reviews because you want other people to either benefit or not make the same mistake that you made. Very, very important. That's a large part of altruism. When you post something on Twitter saying, I have this, for instance, a few months ago I posted saying I'm looking for some help with how do I conference call solutions for the disabled. For a while there was quiet, and then suddenly from somewhere in the whole, in the wide world, I had 2 people write to me by saying, hey, by the way, we've implemented this solution, would you like to go back? And these are not service providers. These are people who are like me, HR managers that have implemented. I'd love to spend half an hour to talk to you. They got nothing out of it except that conversation, and we went and implemented it. I can talk to you about multiple ways in which altruism is at work. The next one is, and there are many of them, so I'm not going to go through all of them. There's hedonism. There's something called homophily. Now, don't get excited. It just means birds of the same feather flock together. The minute I say homophily, you guys will have your imagination run wild. Then there is memetics. and there's narcissism, and there's tribalism. And let's see, and I'll leave the link with Milind so you can pick it up. What are the applications and uses of each of these, and how can we go back? Now you remember this: awareness, preference, loyalty, connection, pride, participation, and perpetuation. Remember those two. Now let's take altruism. Take TripAdvisor. All of you guys are smart HR guys. How will you apply it in your HR activities to drive engagement? It's a good think about it. Like TripAdvisor, how can you harness the power of altruism for one of your HR activities, one of our HR activities that we do, to get engagement? For an activity which is even now very management driven. I'll give you a hint, it's measured by hours.
We are pretty much having a platform where a continuous feedback mechanism can put in place, where people can come in and
Feedback on what?
on whatever event, whatever activity that
Even
as a HR.
activity, okay?
Excuse me.
Narayan, you're an HR. If you don't know, in emphasis, you don't know this, I'm going to rank you down. Okay? Anybody else?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. Is it on? Yeah. I was thinking of sharing whatever you know, your knowledge. We have something called talent sharing, and it's a good platform to share your knowledge with your co-workers. Okay,
Excellent.
so people add on also.
Very good. So we're closed on, I'll tell you, these are different ways. This is what we did in emphasis. Getting people to do training is absolutely impossible. They will only do it if you say, if you don't get 40 hours of training in a year, HR will give you a does not expectation, or if you get a far exceeds, we'll rank you down by 1. So there was always this typical, traditional, old world HR, and I'm the guy who started that. So we said, is there a way that we can change this, and instead of a push, can we create a pull?